Hold on. Let me welcome to Beyond the Pendulum. I am not able to self-promote today because my son has stolen my phone. He's a 2-year-old, so I don't know where my phone is. If you can tell, actually my main profile on the Tyler Durden. I am not active on any social media actually in the last 30 days or so, mainly because I have some more stuff, priorities in my personal life. Um, Trying to get an engineering certificate to change my position in as far as my employment in IT. I'm It's not that I find the I don't know. I go through these phases lately where I find myself more and more and more disassociating from um yeah, I find myself more disassociating from social media, not because it's I actually find myself what they call Alamo, you maybe done it, doom scrolling. You ever heard of that?
Doom?
Yeah,
Doom
it's where you
scrolling?
just yeah, it's where you get onto the video feeds on any social media and you start scrolling for like no fucking reason, endlessly scrolling. Called doom scrolling.
I'm, I don't know. I do learn stuff from watching other people's feeds, but you just like, there's so much garbage out there. It's just like, wow. I just, and you spend hours when you log in, well, if you do anything, it takes hours, whether you're working outside, you're doing something on a computer, you better make it worthwhile. That's just because, man, these social media and the rest of it just takes so much time.
Yeah, and the
You,
world's the
you gotta,
world's
you, you have to balance it some way. It'll suck you in if you let it go too far.
well, yeah, that right now the world's upside down. There's nothing really in the news that's really good at all. It's just been one roller coaster after another. Um, Let me see. Let's start with what happened since we were gone and the hiatus. Yeah, so they found evidence on K128, evidence of life, 100 light years away. This is not the first time they found evidence of life, microbial life, out there in the cosmos. This one is because I believe they found DMSO or dimethyl sulfur or something, dimethyl sulfide, some chemical that's given off by microscopic life, and um, they think it's a Hycean planet. It's an ocean-filled world, about 1.5 times the size of Earth, only 100 light years away, or 128 or something like that. I think that's why they call it K128. I think I don't really don't know what the Kepler thing is, but this one's not that far. Yeah, it's 100 light years away. Uh, if what we found on the how should I say this nicely? If we found life on asteroids that we found from the Osiris Rex, on the evidence of, that points towards life in the, even on the water samples on the asteroids that we found in there, the worlds out, the many many worlds that are out there in the cosmos are probably filled with life as well. It's inevitable. It's actually we should not think of life as something that's, how should I say, this is what somebody said a long time ago, and I kind of had this theory about life, and they're in the cosmos, and I've seen UFOs anyway, but you should think of life as not as something that is how that needs certain conditions. Think of it more like a virus. It is wherever it can go, it will go. It should probably more abundant than we think of it because believe it or not, the have you Alamo, have you ever seen did you watch Star Trek Discovery?
Wow, man, I watched a lot of the early stuff. I like kind of, I forget when I quit watching the movies. And
No, no,
it
no,
was a
the new
while.
one they had for the CBS. online app, the new one they had, the one that has a black captain, the younger one.
No, no.
Oh, and yes, Spock is in it. Yeah, and so there's this big part about how that they found a way to integrate themselves into a fungal network and basically jump from one side of the universe to the other. And I was hearing this from the on a podcast. I forget what his name is. He is the one. He is the number one research mycologist in the world. And I heard him on a podcast talking about how um, fungus is probably not of this world, not from this planet. It is probably there's more evidence than not that they might flourish in the zero gravity of space, especially since what we found at the experiments with NASA and how we found how black fungus would mutate and actually thrive in radioactive conditions. Um, so life is
No,
probably abundant out there in the cosmos.
yeah, it sure looks that way. I mean, even though it seems odd that we can't like kickstart it in the lab somehow, and yet you look everywhere and you see it where like say asteroids, other planets. You're getting signatures of it. I mean, so life has gotten out there and spread, but we can't seem to start it from scratch. That seems odd.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
mean,
it's out there though. I mean, you've seen that same signature, I think, from the clouds of Venus on this planet. I think there's another one, maybe a CO2 signature or something. I mean, any water world's has to have life. I mean, pretty much, even if
yeah.
it's one of these frozen moons. I mean, they're already.
Well, and that's the weird thing that we get into is that we commonly think of microbial life as not intelligent, but when you start getting into the philosophical discussions from Dennis McKenna, Terrence McKenna's brother, who also has a PhD, um, and what was guy Phil, whatever, and you start. This was something that I I had come across with the theory about mescaline and but this one pertains specifically to the psilocybin 4-ACO or psilocin 4-ACO DMT molecule and how why would a fungus um, produce a psychedelic, and this is weird too. This is another weird thing about cactus a lot of people don't know, um, is that mescaline is probably not a neurotoxin or deterrent, and it's actually more abundant in the succulents than people would want to know, but people would not look for it because we're talking very minuscule amounts along very very wide amount of breeds. And I've heard this from an expert in well, wouldn't call him like research level, but the person who grows this for a living. That and the when you're when you know how you can find most of the elements within a human, the same theory with mescaline, but when it comes to psilocybin, it's not all. It's a very narrow band of the what do you call it? Myco mycology what is it? Very narrow band of the mushroom family that produces the psychoactive substances. But we every year mycology is one of those weird studies where every year when it comes to like cryptozoology and people who are finding new animals, they only find some, but they always find like 100 times that every year with mushrooms. So but there's always been this theory in the background that um, the way that mushrooms work with their spores and the what's it called, mycelium networks that they produce. That there's been a theory out there for a while that the 4-ACO DMT is some sort of way that this plant is either trying to communicate with us or showing us knowledge. And I'm not gonna put that in the poo poo category, because I've had those moments, where they call it the golden teacher. The drug is going to push you where you want to go. It's not the other way around. And when you start getting into these higher doses of 4-ACO DMT, the drug turns more DMT-ish than whatever, more alien. Um, but it's very weird that our biology goes hand in hand with this fungus. You know, we didn't have to have the receptor in our brain, and that thing didn't have to produce it. So
Now, wouldn't
it's
it? I mean, in that, well, the fungus is going to be more ancient, though. I mean, it was
it
kind of like it
is.
was at first,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not like it really invaded you. It was like, all right, you probably grew up around it, or in terms of cells and
You've heard of the stoned ape theory, right? That
stoned ape.
yeah, Terence McKenna believed that mankind evolved from monkeys. That it was a accidental ingestion of magic mushrooms that might have kick-started the evolution of mankind.
Yeah, I mean, I can believe that. That would have given them some kind of well, it's going to give them an experience
Hmm.
for sure. That's that always opens your mind somehow. Uh, yeah, I mean, if they were eating everything, they're going to run across it.
Yeah, and there are other
Or
mushrooms. There are other mushrooms out
is
there that produces psychoactive effects, but most of them are not what you want.
yeah.
Yeah, ibotenic acid and muscimol is not what I would call a good time. That amanita shit, it's garbage. Um,
But it's all it's like it's like a kid growing up. I mean, what do they tell you? The kid may not remember all, but you take them out, you have experiences at the ocean and the forest. It's part of being well rounded, right? And I believe it's the same thing. We've become well rounded via all these things that have happened to us, whether we were trying to or not. Like the ingestion of the mushrooms, the absorption of these other plant and fungus type chemical reactions. I mean, they all serve a purpose somehow. It's just
yeah, I believe it does. Um,
it's part of the experience. That that is what you are. It's just at the end of the
I
day.
don't know when science starts to accept consciousness as part of the fundamental core of reality and a lot of the unknown physics and quantum mechanics. I believe that we'll start cracking little stuff like this, but there's always this theory that if you're in a machine and you're at a lower processing level than the thing that is creating the environment, you're only going to see so far, and that we're limited by our biology and understanding of what and where and what this is. Um, so who knows? Maybe AI will figure it out. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, this whole this thing about being in a spinning black hole and all this. I mean, that makes sense because my argument with this finding the Higgs particle and all that is the photon has to react with a quantum field, the Higgs field, which is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But yet fields are made from excitation from the outside. So there's something outside.
Yeah, I totally believe.
You're in that inner part, just like you're describing, like the way the machine works. It's the same way in the world itself. You are inside something that is inside something else.
Yeah, I could totally
And
believe that.
whatever is just outside is forcing you to spin and do all these, as above, so below. You could use that, same analogy. It's just so the same physics are there. You're seeing the same results of similar type of physics acting on you from the outside. That's basically what I'm getting at.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I totally believe that our universe is in a black hole. It's a one big ass black hole.
Yeah, maybe it's not a black hole. Maybe you're just spinning. But that has affected. You can see it in the CMB with these dipole correlations, and that shouldn't really. Things are kind of aligned and flat. It just that shouldn't be unless there's something going on. It should be totally random. You shouldn't see any kind of correlation like that.
Well, yeah, we found that all the objects in the universe are kind of not only moving in one direction, they're all spinning in the same direction. That shouldn't
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. Oh, yeah. But as odd as that may seem, after thinking about it, well, it's like, well, this is all the same. You're a velocity perpendicular to acceleration. Causes this. That's the Coriolis effect. So, there's your spin. It's
I really wonder if what I did during that gateway session where I was totally out of body, and I wonder if I don't know. Sometimes you can't tell if what you're seeing is actually like some sort of internal projection or external, because there's I don't know. I don't want to get into that, but it would explain what I saw.
yeah. I've been sick enough. You get into these levels like when you're like a serious delirium. You're like right on the edge. I mean, it just
Yeah.
things get so misty, and and your senses are so messed up. It, you can like be, you're in a hospital, and yet it seems like you're somewhere else. You really lose touch. I wonder about that too. Just I'd rather have an experience when my senses are like, it's like, okay, I'm normal, you know, nothing's going on, no drinking, and then you see something, then, it's like, okay, now, it's like,
Yeah. Let me see what else. Oh yeah, there's a video out there of a Russian shooting down a UFO, or Russia in Russia, them shooting down a UFO or attempting to shoot down a UFO. Um, disc, flying disc in Russia with tracers. Also, I got word that the Jersey drones are still happening.
yeah,
And
that did pop up on the news. Yeah, the other day. What was the other one? Man. Oh, well, there was that Canadian one. Uh, a U.S. plane F-35 shot down a UFO over Canada, and then that story just disappeared. I can't find anything on that. It's funny. The Russian shot one down now too,
well, you heard,
or tried to.
do you watch American Alchemy with Jesse Michaels?
No, no, no go.
So there was uh, Henry Kissinger had a um, Henry Kissinger had a I didn't watch the whole thing. I only watched I didn't watch the whole podcast. Um, but he was interviewing a guy who was part of the old program, and this guy was on his deathbed. He actually died after the interview. Um, but he was the real deal, the golden boy, and he was spilling all his secrets. And we've been having, he even had his hands on the crash materials. Um, we've this has been going on for a lot longer than the public's been apt to it. But I don't know. This really baffles my mind how much the government really knows. And it's not even the government, it's a close, small group of people actually know. It really baffles my mind what what they have and how much and how far they've come along. But there's more evidence than not that we've been not only shooting them down, we've been reverse engineering them for a while. For what purpose, I don't know. Because if they were using it as a weapon, they've already done it by now.
Yeah,
So
that's usually the first thing. Any new power plant or jet engine gets used in some kind of weapon. I mean,
unless they're already off world and doing other missions in other places and keeping the technology for themselves, that would be the ultimate middle finger. I think that's what they are doing.
well, that's the elite plan, right? They want to be off world, away from the other. I
They
guess
probably
the
they probably
scum.
already. I mean, they
Yeah.
probably already are.
I think they could do a certain amount of that already. It's just like, what are you going to do when you're up in space? Though? I mean, you better have a big ass. If you're going to make it nice for rich folks, it's got to be big, and that's a problem. It's just,
Or maybe the tech
yeah,
was never designed for intergalactic travel. Maybe it's only short, sub, short above light speed, bending space,
yeah.
because once you start thinking about like even if you're bending space, intergalactic travel, it might not be intergalactic. It might be within the galaxy. Let's just keep it that. Um, Even at those distances with bending space, you're still dealing with um, time distortion issues, even if you're bending space. So you'd basically be time traveling.
Yeah, what does that do? Like, let's say you bring a planet new, you hop onto it, and then you release the
Yeah,
warping. What is that? Yeah, what
you
happens?
could never return to the same time of when you left. Basically, that's the problem. Everybody when you return to where you came from will be dead.
Oh yeah, even if you're like not even, yeah, even if you don't get to light speed, you see that pretty quick.
That's where it gets all
Yeah.
weird. I think the only way you could get around the time distortion is something like an Einstein-Rosen bridge, instantaneous travel from point A to point B. I don't know if you'd still be doing time travel, but that would be like something like Stargate. Like that would probably be the only way. I don't know if you'd deal with have time distortions with something like that either. But
Well, if
them
it warps space, it seems like it would have to warp time, right? I mean, you already see that
yeah,
with speed. So I mean, it just, my gut feeling is there has to be some tie in there. If you're warping one, you got to be warp. If you're
yeah.
warping space time, you have to be warping time. So,
So like maybe that's something that our civilization is just not ready for.
yeah, even my problem with the whole thing is like, okay, even if we can't get to light speed, we need to start doing something to get out there, because that's not required to like colonize the galaxy. It's just the will to do it, and expects, accept slower speeds, and the fact it's going to take you longer to get somewhere, but you just do it, and then
Yeah.
over 100,000 years, before you know it, well, you're everywhere you needed to go. You didn't need to get there at light speed. That's more, until we get to the technology. That's what you have to look at, if you're going to get serious about it. But I just don't see us getting serious about anything, except fighting each other. We're really good at that.
Yeah. I haven't even been turning on the news. Like, it's been depressing lately, dude. Like Trump really screwed shit up. Like as far as the
Well, he just
economy.
proves, yeah, he just proves every day he's not an international businessman. You don't fight inflation by raising taxes and starting a tariff war.
Oh yeah,
It's
and
like, are you fucking
now he's
stupid?
deporting everybody. He's deporting the wrong people. Like you hear about that Russian scientist that was working on cancer research?
No, not that guy.
Yeah,
There's
no,
some other examples. I just,
she's been stuck in an immigration center because they revoked her stuff because she was bringing frog embryos onto a plane and didn't declare it.
oh, well, that is weird.
But it's not illegal.
Okay. then why are they holding her?
Exactly. Like what's going on there in the news is like scary. They're even detaining people who are American citizens. Immigration.
Yeah, let's see. I think we just have to, face the fact that, even if you're a supposed citizen of the U.S., you're just fair game. I mean, if the government wants you for some reason, they're going to come get you. That's where we're at.
I guess.
You get up on the wrong, sideways to the wrong folks, and
This
well,
is
and this
not
is a political. You see how the politics change. Joe Biden didn't have a problem with any of this. Shovel them all in, and then the politics change, and then you see the results. It's like, well,
well,
an unraveling.
I never really had a problem with it anyway. Like I grew up in, pretty much where, LA and, you don't, well, you could just get used to it. It's just the way of life, Everybody works. Some people don't speak English, so you learn Spanish. I mean, I've never really had a
Yeah,
problem with it. Like I've always had it this way, dude. If they wanted to fix the immigration system, um, let's not make it a matter of political ways. If you want to fix it, make it a matter of money. That's it. Solve it. You
that
make it an
used to.
attainable goal.
Well, there was a system like that in the '60s. That was the old way of doing things, and ever since the mid '60s and then the big push there with LBJ and the rest is that's when it started changing
Yeah, I
because they
mean,
wanted for their reasons say that's what they wanted.
we're
But if you
talking.
want the highest caliber, the old way of, hey, you have to have like a sponsor here, you have to have some kind of business, something going for you. You're not going to come here and be a load on our system. I mean, almost every country does it this way. They don't want Americans going somewhere and like loading up the Thai system or, some other, they don't have the money that we do. So, you have to prove yourself, bring in X amount of money
Well,
and support yourself.
most countries, especially like South Asia, I know because I've tried thought about it. Most immigrants in South Asia, it's just a matter of money. Either
Yeah.
you pay for citizenship or you invest in a business, and there's usually a monetary amount. And then you can become a provisionary citizen, and then naturalize in a lot of countries. So
So you don't load up their system, you don't take
yeah,
any of their jobs away, and you're good to go. Yeah.
most
But
yeah,
that's
most countries it's just a matter of money. It's how
for
this.
us, I think it's getting technology people in, the doctors. I mean, that's been going on forever. It makes sense. I mean, if you can do it, and if you're a better environment for them, well, why not? You're getting quality people in. This business that's just bringing in the hordes and putting them on welfare. That's not immigration. That's not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, I understand emergency asylum, what happened to the Sudanese and stuff like that. I understand stuff like that, but like,
But if you're in El Salvador running from gang violence, going to LA doesn't solve that. That's the whole hoax of the thing. You haven't run from gang violence because we have it here. That doesn't to me that doesn't add up. That's when you say, well, you know,
well, no, Northern Europe is dealing with that too, with the Syrian refugees, and in Sweden, it's getting out of control. The
yeah,
violent crime is up in Sweden, 300%.
yeah,
And
yeah. There's just
it's not only coming from the immigrants. They have a pretty bad drug problem up there, sparking violence. Crystal meth is expanded into the Scandinavian countries, um, in Northern Europe, where it didn't used to exist before COVID. And then you deal with the mental illness of stimulants and crack hit the streets of Germany. You start having all these um, violence, increase in violence. So it's like, but what I hear in Sweden, it's crazy. That's like when I lived in Chicago, that kind of violence.
yeah, yeah. There's the religious side of that. There's the racial, cultural. I think I think nations know how to like in their heart know how to like keep their population happy and have a good a good experience. And That's not what they're interested in right now. You go back 40 or 50 years, it was totally different thinking. Uh, Mixing people together, as good as it sounds, if you can get everybody to agree and live in that environment and respect each other, then you're okay because that there is a strength in a slight strength in that if you can keep everybody together. But
Oh,
if you get everybody together and they're just fighting among themselves, it's the worst thing that ever happened.
well,
It's
that's
just
what's happening right now in Canada. You know,
yeah.
Canada's
And if
been Canada's been open to uh, immigration for problematic countries for decades, and now they're having problems with too many people living on the system. I don't
yeah,
know.
it
It's not.
works at low levels. You can't bring in too many problems. That's big. If you have a stable country, you don't bring in too many problems. You can have a certain amount of it that you can absorb, but well, it's like here. They came out with the stats, and this is last year when they didn't really stop the immigration for the political reasons until like say March or so last year. But even in San Antonio, I mean, like our crime went down, anywhere from 30 to 40% on things, just getting rid of that stream of people that was coming through this area. And they act like there's no cost, but then our sanctuary city police chief, he can't figure out what's going on and why it's dropped so fast. Well, you're a
Dude,
fucking
here,
idiot.
here in LA, we didn't see any of that. I don't know. They weren't coming through here. They
Oh,
might.
it
I
was
don't
this
know.
dude. It was a
Maybe they
stream
were.
of them. I mean, straight. There was a couple of main arteries through the city, and it was just a stream of people, constant. They had
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
the McDonald's and were businesses along the way. Certain of them were just getting overrun and trashed out, dude. Just it's
Maybe
like
they were
fuck,
here.
man, for years.
Maybe they were here, but like once they get to like LA, they probably already have friends and family by that time. So they're just, I don't know. It's like here nobody
Well,
cares.
I've watched them do this since the '80s. So with the first big push there with Reagan when he let that first big group into like 4 or 5 million way back, and it's just been wave after wave ever since. This last one by far the biggest, but you know how many times we go through this.
It seems like Texas is like you see more of it. You see,
Well, yeah, because there's just all these maquiladora plants. Like what is it, I-35? From the Texas border all the way to Canada is like the busiest interstate in the country now. There's like
but a lot of them,
15,000 trucks a day that come across the border
but
up that
a
highway.
lot of those, believe it or not, I know this from having friends, from Central California. There's this one city, county actually, that's all farms, and 90% of the workforce is illegal immigrants.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah, they
cares.
do.
'Cause nobody else is going to do the work.
Yeah, there's a real problem. And, there's nothing wrong with that migrant labor. I mean, that was always, man, that's been there since 100 plus years.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't care. It helps the economy. They pay taxes. They get IA. A lot of people have this weird thing that like people immigrate. They don't pay taxes. It's not true. They get IANA numbers and they pay taxes just like you and me.
well, at least, yeah, all the state, for sure, all the sales tax and all that. They're paying tax.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And they're not on they're
I had a
working.
number
They're
too.
not on the dole. So, that should be a plus.
I don't know. I'm not jiving with this whole deportation thing. I actually saw the numbers, and 60,000 people are behind bars in ICE immigration detention centers, and they don't have the faculty to. Hi, Booba. They don't have the manpower to keep it, nor the funds to keep everybody that they're doing. It's actually costing us more money to what they're doing right now as a political stunt. Um, uh, yeah. Oh, can you still hear me?
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing, Booba? Give me 5 minute. 5 minute. 5 minute. Okay. 5 minute. Say bye bye. 5 minute. Give me 5 minute. Go go. 5 minute. Okay, close door. Close door. 5 minute. But yeah, he's got. I don't know. This is like the worst I've ever seen. This is like they're just taking anybody, just deporting them.
Well, when you let in everybody,
Yeah,
this well, especially that criminal element, I mean, that needs to go first. But
that's the thing is
I,
I'm hearing
there's
most
no
of the
easy
people.
choices. I mean, there's a human aspect to this that you have to get through. It's just like, enforcing the law is not going to be easy.
Yeah, but most of the
But
people who are getting deported don't have like 60% of them don't have criminal cases. That's a majority. That's what I don't understand.
yeah,
Uh,
if they miss their court date, I mean, I just have to assume you have to assume that there's a process here, which there is, that's been set up. Now, it's been abused politically for sure by the other side for 4+ years here, and here come the other guys, and they're going to go probably overboard the other way. But
yeah, they're going overboard right
I
now.
mean, you have you got to get rid of them. I mean, they're foreign nationals who have lost their way.
The
That's
thing
the way I
is,
look at
the thing is though, their own countries aren't accepting them back.
it. I mean, they opened up their prisons and mental wards and told you to head north. It's just
Ay, ay, ay. That's the thing. That's the thing about
it's
that's the weird thing about
it's sad, man. It's
I traveled the world and most people think that, traveling to another country is going to solve your problems. And I've been all over the place and you find the same problems everywhere. There's there's a
yep,
very it's very weird to find a utopia anywhere. There's pockets of them, but they're small, you know.
yeah. And
Like there's one in
the other side
India,
is if
there's one utopia in India, there's one in like Boise, Idaho. There's these small pockets of closed communities that have this utopia, but it doesn't exist in a country, you know. Even Switzerland has its problems with drugs, yeah, crime.
you know, and there's pluses and minuses to every system. Once you see it, but you just got to pick the best one. I mean,
Like
the West is.
Seychelles used to be a great country, but has a heroin problem, you know?
Hmm. What I think I see is like, if you have a certain amount of money, let's just call you rich, the world can be a great place. I mean, because you don't have to worry about average Joe things. I mean, you still have all the usual problems that can have within families or whatever. But as far as money issues or ability to travel or do things, and you can relax in that sense and enjoy the world that way.
Yeah,
But if you don't have the money, then everything gets difficult.
yeah.
And no matter where you're at. So,
I don't know. I just like right now, it just feels like everything's upside down. The stock market, the
well,
economy.
you have the big orange narcissist. I mean, flaming narcissist. Everybody should have expected this. If you know anything about psychology and these people, you should expect this.
I voted for him because
That's what I keep telling everybody. It's
I
like
wasn't gonna vote for Kamala. You know, that would have been worse.
I say, you people, at least the ones I hang, most people I hang around. So it's like, look, all you people love Trump, but you didn't. You have no clue to his true personality. You just don't understand how this guy operates. He showed you 4 years ago, and yet here we are again. And I'll vote for him because okay, he's a Republican nominee. Blah blah blah. You got to support our. It's like whatever. But it's like, do I really support this guy? Hell no, because I understand who he is. I
Yeah,
understand what a flaming narcissist is. This is exactly what you should expect from a guy like that, who's not really an international businessman of any type. So, am I surprised? No,
no, I'm
because
not.
I understand the guy. it's all these other people, get pissed off. It's just like, oh, true, yeah, because you don't get it, man. You want a savior, and you're not looking at the truth here.
We got 4 more years. Hopefully, only 4 more years. He was
It's gonna
talking
be
about
rough,
eventually.
man. It's like, I mean, this is starting off all bad. It's like,
He was talking about running for a third term. I was like, oh my god, what are you gonna do? How you gonna pull that off?
well,
We haven't had a 3-term president since FDR, and they changed the law.
yeah, I wonder how he's. I'm surprised even. Why would he even talk like that? See, that's what I get about Trump. It's just like, it's like there's some type of threat there, and it's just like, how are you gonna pull that off?
Well, Obama said the same thing. Remember that? He said the same thing, but I think he was joking. I think.
Yeah. Well,
I hope.
I wonder. I mean, are these guys just, if they really could pull it off, would they just do it? Say, well, I told you I was going
Shit,
to do it, and
shit wasn't good with Obama either. Everybody thinks he was great, great ass president. I'm like, no, he wasn't.
yeah,
He
he
wasn't
ripped through.
good.
I mean, he was ripped through too much money and the deficit, just like the rest of them. Which really, to me, started with Bush.
I think the only
At the
good
end of
one
the,
the only good one we've had in a long time was, as much as I hate to say it, was Clinton.
yep. No, that was a good time. The '90s, '92 to 2000 was a boom time of the economy.
And he paid off
Your
the national
debt,
debt.
yeah, your debt to what your economy was 20%. And then look at what's happened the last 25 years, man. It's like, what the fuck? It's ridiculous. They just they act like the debt, and it was just like this fantasy. Like
Oh,
it's not real. It doesn't really matter.
yeah.
You're gonna find out. Hell, even Trump says that. It's psychological, Tyler. The debt is just a psychological. You got to get over the psychology of it. Well, right there, it tells you this guy's not a businessman. If you're a businessman, you don't talk like that.
You don't,
You know
especially
it.
90%. Okay, 90% of the parts. Okay, how should I say this? We cannot give China the middle finger of because of what it will affect. It will affect transportation. It will affect. We can the food market. We could survive on our own, but we are talking
You don't threaten the guy who
electronics,
makes everything.
electro. Yes, we don't produce everything, and realistically, it's going to be about 10 years before we get there. Intel has in the Intel factory that was supposed to be like in Arizona or Texas, wherever the fuck it was supposed to be. They're building tech in Texas. It still isn't there. It's not done. And how are we going to produce semiconductors at such a high level without violating our own EPA laws? Like,
You're probably not. See, you don't threaten the manufacturing country. That's not going to work. You weren't threatened in 1950 as the manufacturing empire by any other country threatening you because you were the manufacturer. How you beat them at this game is actually become a manufacturing nation again. You don't raise tariffs. That doesn't threaten
it's
any
not.
manufacturer because he can just cut you off and jack up everything that much higher because they control your life. You gave it all away, so now you have to get it back.
It's
But you don't
not
do it this
cost
way.
effective to make anything in this country. You can't sell it abroad and you can't sell it internally. Like here's an example. You know, a Chinese drone, an industrial Chinese drone, you can get for about 3,500. If you make the same shit with the same parts manufactured here in USA, it costs $35,000. And that we're minusculing on the labor. Um, it's not cost effective to make anything here.
It, it, and it's just going to be that much harder because you gave it all away. So yeah, spend the money and become a manufacturer again. That's how you become a manufacturing nation.
Yeah, you don't tariff
You don't
everything.
make deals with people by threatening them when they've actually got leverage on you. That's just fucking dumb. That's a great way to lose.
Yeah, my gosh. Well, the automat, even the American car companies are gonna go down because their circuit boards on their newer cars are all coming from Asia.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see more and more companies. You know, you got Walmart and these big retailers
Oh
lobbying
yeah,
them
for
direct,
sure.
like, "Hey, man, you're going to just destroy our fucking." You know, I mean, they're already like March shipping is down 40% from China already, and it's like, man, you're insane. You know what? The whole supply chain is going to be fucked, dude. And he just
Yeah.
doesn't get it. But you know, a real businessman would, but he's not a real businessman. He's a real bullshitter.
Yeah.
Well, he's destroying it for Republicans in 2026. I'm warning everybody how you've already, pretty much lost 2026. You Republicans are so fucking stupid. You're doing it to yourselves again. Here you
I
go.
actually heard he might because of what's going on now, between the left and the right, there's a good possibility that we might get a third party if they have a
Yeah,
majority.
it's an excellent time for that. If you could get one of these candidates, they can hang in there. I don't know what it is. Every time you get these opportunities and a third party, you get a, oh man, what was that guy in the '90s? Fucking the pipsqueak I used to call him. Ron Paul put up a pretty good run, but the Republicans fucked him over. I guess what was that? '08. He was really the nominee over Romney, but can't have that.
Oh wow.
Who was that other guy? Man, he was the billionaire.
Oh, Ross Perot. No, not Ross Perot. No.
Yeah, but he quit. See, that's how Clinton got in. He actually, had great numbers, and he quit like late in the game there, and then just handed it to Clinton. Ross Perot.
Oh God, I actually got to get off. My kid's yelling at me. That's fun.
All right.
So I'll be back on the 8th, and with that we'll roll out.